Modelers, let's talk about how to generate maximum profitability. Okay, we're going to dive into a few big levers that you have in your business, and understanding the ratios and the connected nature of these levers will allow you to figure out the best move for your business so that you can maximize profit. So we're going to start with a few things. We're going to start with your break even, so that we know how much do we need to do just to ensure that we don't lose money, and then we'll look at how we can maximize money. And that means next we're going to look at our maximum capacity. And then once we know our maximum capacity, we also need to know what does it actually cost us to bring in customers. So cost to acquire a customer. Okay, so let's break all of these down. We're going to look at our break even first. And so in order to figure out your break even, we need to know either your monthly or your annual overhead. So that's going to be sales and marketing, administrative, no cost of goods sold. We want all of those overhead expenses. And so let's say you have $1 million in overhead on an annual basis. If you have $1 million in overhead on an annual basis, and you have a 30% gross margin, so we're going to take 0.3, we're just going to divide those two. And so we're going to take our million and divide it by 0.3. Maybe we should divide it by 0.35, 1, 0, 0. Nope, that was even worse. So, all right, we'll stick with our original. So our break even is 3.3. And so what this tells us is that all the way up until $3.3 million in sales, we're losing money. And then as soon as we get to this point, we've broken even. And you can reverse this back by just taking the 3.3, multiplying that by a 30% gross margin, and you'll get $1 million. And so that means you've got 3.3 million in revenue. You have 70% of that is gone to cost of goods, and then you have 30% left over, and that is your gross margin dollars. So you've got $1 million in gross margin, and then below that you have overhead, which was $1 million. And so that's the way that your little mini P&L would work, is you've got 3.3 million, and that is revenue. And then you've got your COGS, and then you've got your gross margin. And so this was 1 million, so that means this was 2.3. And then you have your overhead, and that was 1 million, and then you have your net profit. And so in this case, that's going to be a goose egg, because that is our break even. So 3.3, you have a 30% gross margin right here. That means this is 70%, 30%, and then we have our overhead down here. Sales, marketing, admin costs, and then we have our net profit. So that's how we figure out our break even. You're going to take your annual or monthly overhead and divide it by your gross margin percentage, and that will give you your dollars, revenue dollars needed to break even. Okay, next we want to look at maximum capacity. And so this will be you looking at your team structure, your time, your utilization of your existing resources. How many projects could you handle? And so for this, you're going to know what that is based on how many resources you're using right now and how many more projects you could take on. So if you could take on 15 projects, then we're going to put that there. And then we're going to look at our cost to acquire a customer. Now, we've talked about this in a number of other videos, but the quick solution for this, and you figuring it out, is taking your last 12 months of all of your sales and marketing expenses. And so this is going to be sales plus marketing. You do need to include salaries or parts of salaries. So if you have an office manager that spends 20% of their time on, email and social media and other marketing activities, take 20% of their salary, put it in this bucket. If you're the owner and you're in sales and you spend half your time in sales, then put 50% of your salary and what you pay yourself in this bucket as well. Signs, truck wraps, website, advertising, trade shows, printed material, CRM, software, all of that goes into this bucket, sales and marketing. And then we're going to divide that by the number of customers that you signed in that same time period. So it's usually easiest to look at the last 12 months on your P&L or just go to the previous year. I like recency, so using the last 12 will give you better data, and then the number of customers you signed, and that will give you your average cost to acquire a customer. Now we've got our three numbers here. We know our break even, we know our max capacity, and then we know our cost to acquire a customer. Okay, so let's walk through a real example so that you can follow this and then plug in your own numbers to see where you are and where the profit maximization zone is. So we're going to start with our overhead. And our overhead is $800,000, and that's on an annual basis. So if we want to figure out our break even, we need to divide that by our gross margin percentage. And so in this example, we're going to take that by 25%, and that will get us our break even revenue. And so if we take 800,000 divided by 0.25, that gets us to our 3.2 million. So if your overhead is also 800,000, all the way up till 3.2 million, we are breaking even. We are not making money. We are losing money up to this point, and then everything else past that is where we start to make money. So it's important that we get past that number. Okay, so next we're going to layer in our capacity. And so let's look at this as our capacity. And so we have figured out that our max capacity is 24. So max capacity. And remember, this is something that you will need to look at your team, resources, utilization rate, your structure to determine, hey, how many of my average projects can I handle with my current overhead and then my team structure. And so we've got 24 as our max capacity, and we're going to start at 0 for the year as we ramp up. So we're currently, so this would be kind of your halfway point at 12. We're currently at 18. And so first we want to figure out, okay, 3.2, what is our break even? So we know that's our break even revenue, but what is it for our number of projects? And so in this case, we have an average project size of 200,000. If you don't know your average project size, an easy way to get to that is just taking your revenue divided by the number of customers that you signed, and that will get you to your average project size. And so if we have an average project size of 200,000, we also know we have a 25% gross margin, so our LTV is 50,000. So we take our average project size of 200,000, multiply it by our gross margin, 25%, and that gets us to what this customer is worth to us. So that's 50,000. But what we're trying to do is figure out where is our break even in terms of number of projects. And so if we know this is our gross margin per project is $50,000, right? That's what a customer is worth to us. And we know gross margin needs to cover our overhead. Because if we look at a little mini P&L, we've got revenue, we've got COGS, we've got our gross margin, and then we've got our overhead, and we've got net profit. And so if our overhead is 800,000, then we need 800,000 in gross margin to break even. And if we know this is our gross margin per project, we're going to take 800,000 divided by 50,000, and that will get us to 16. And so this, if we want that at 800, then we're going to need 16 projects. So right in here, this is our break even for number of projects. So everything up until this point, we are in the red. We are not making money. At 16 projects, we break even and we start to move ahead. This particular company, they are sitting at 18 projects, so they're making some profit. And if we look at, they're basically 2 projects above the break even. So if we take our $50,000 in profit per job in terms of gross margin, they're making 100 grand in profit. So they have, they're north of 3 million in revenue, and they're making $100,000 to the bottom line. But they have a max capacity of 24. And so that means we've got all of this distance to cover to make more profit, because every project we add adds $50,000 in net profit, and that will all start falling to the bottom line. Because if we add another project up here, we don't increase our overhead, and so we're going to increase our net profit. And so this becomes the game, is trying to maximize our capacity, everything we can above the break-even line. And so now we're going to look at, okay, we probably need more leads. We need more opportunity. And so we're going to look at how we can start to ramp things up. And so knowing your cost to acquire a customer is really important, and also knowing the number of leads that you need to close the sale is important. And so we want to look at a couple more details here. We're going to look at our cost to acquire a customer, and we'll just say for this particular client, it is $10,000. And so everything that they spend on sales and marketing, it costs them 10 grand to bring in a customer. That customer is a $200,000 project with a 25% gross margin, which is 50,000. So they have a 5-to-1 ratio. So let's get these all grouped together here so we can see it. Customer is worth 50 grand, it costs them 10, so they have a 5-to-1. So if they say, great, we're happy with that trade, we could spend more $10,000 and get more $50,000 back if we put those into our machine. And so as we look at this, we have 6 more projects that we need, 6 more customers that we need. We know it costs us $10,000 to acquire a customer, so the simple, easy decision tree here is let's ramp up marketing by $60,000 a year or $5,000 a month. So we could say, hey, I think if we add $5,000 a month to our current marketing system, that we could add 6 more customers. Now, you may be thinking, well, gosh, we're going to add another $60,000 to our overhead, but what are we going to get back? And so we want to look at, okay, well, if we get 6 new customers, and customers are worth $50,000 in gross margin to us, that is $300,000. So we're saying, hey, we've got this machine, it's running, it costs us 10 grand to bring in a customer, we need 6 more, let's put in another 60, and we're going to get 300 back. And so then if we do that, it costs us 60 more, and so we are left with $240,000 in additional net profit. Now, if you remember, in this current scenario, we were at 18 projects and we were at $100,000 in total net profit for this business. By adding 6 more projects, getting up to the profit maximization zone, we added another $240,000. So that brings us to 340, over tripling the net profit by, yes, increasing marketing by 60,000, because this business understands this is the opportunity zone, and that's where you can make the most profit. And so it's a counterintuitive thing, and it can be often very difficult to make this decision, because you're sitting here and you're going, hey, we're profitable, we're making 100 grand in net profit, but to really increase our profit, you have to commit to this additional marketing expense so that you can add more gross margin to the bottom line. And so often the hardest marketing is right here. Like, you're doing all of this marketing just to get up to the break even, and then you're just making a little bit of profit. And so then it's super scary to say, gosh, we're barely making a profit here. Let's spend even more on sales and marketing. But this is actually where you can be the most aggressive on your sales and marketing, because even if this doesn't work and this only brings you in 4 more projects instead of 6, again, 4 times 50 is 200,000. So instead of this 300, it's going to bring us 200, and it costs us 60. We're still going to drop 140 to the bottom line, and that's still more than doubling your profit. And so even if it gets less efficient, your sales and marketing machine gets less efficient above the break-even line, as long as you know what it costs you and what those customers are worth, and you're looking at that ratio, you can actually do worse with your marketing in terms of efficiency and performance, but still your overall company will be more profitable. And so that's why it's so important to run this capacity for yourself and see, what's my break even, what's my max capacity, and where do I sit today? And if you're sitting just above the break even line and you have room, then usually you just want to juice your marketing and you want to spend more, because that's where you're going to make the real profit in your business. So if you're not at max capacity, the answer is usually, let's spend more on sales and marketing, assuming your engine is okay, meaning your ratio between what a customer is worth and what it costs you to acquire one. And if this is 3-to-1, 6-to-1, above, go for it. If it's at 3-to-1, you may want to just run your numbers again and see, hey, actually, maybe our marketing isn't bringing in the right type of customers. But if you're closer to that, 5, 6, 7-to-1 and above, then usually you can just increase your marketing, get more projects in the door, and make more profit for your current structure. So if you're not at max capacity, that's where you want to be. If you're closing this gap to max capacity, then you should be making more money, and that puts you at a decision tree where you can either say, cool, let's kind of optimize for 24. I think we can do better with our marketing, so we still want 24 projects, but we just want to maybe spend a little bit less. Or, hey, I want to spend the same, but I want to do 24 projects, but I want to increase my project size and see if I can get that to 250, 225, 275. And if you do that, this will go up. Or maybe you'll say, I just want more leads so that I can increase my gross margin. And so maybe your average project size doesn't go up, but you increase your gross margin. Maybe it's a combination of those two things, but basically increasing your average project size, increasing your gross margin, that will increase what a customer is worth to you. If you can sign more customers, increase your close rate, that could decrease what it costs you to acquire. Or you could look at all of your marketing and say, these 2 channels are doing okay, these ones are crushing it, let's just move those dollars here. We're going to spend the same, but we're going to put it towards the channels that are working better. that will also cause this to go down. And so making this number go up and this number go down is how you improve the engine. And then once you like the engine, then you just want to do more of this so that you can hit this window. That would be an optimize. Hey, we're at 24. We are just trying to increase our profitability by making customers worth more or driving down our cost to acquire. Option 2 in that decision tree is, great, now that we've got to 24 and we're making more profit than we were before, let's revisit overhead and our current team structure and see if we can increase our maximum capacity. And so if you add, 100 or 200K to your overhead, then it will drive this up, and that might be 28 or it might be 30. You'll know with the people that you're hiring what you're trying to unlock. And so yes, you're adding more overhead, 200,000. That's going to reduce your net profit by the same, but now you can add more projects. And so then you're going to add $50,000 in profit back per project. So you're basically saying, hey, I need 4 more projects to cover this additional overhead. So I need to get to 28. And then if I can get to 30, 32, that's where I'm actually starting to come out ahead on this new overhead investment. And so those are the 2 trees. You have optimize, or the 2 branches of that decision tree. You can optimize your existing structure, or you can say, cool, I like this. Now we just need to do a lot more. But to increase our capacity, we need to make some hires, increase marketing and sales to get there. And so that is going to add to our overhead. So I would encourage you to start with step 1, which is figure out what is your max capacity, what is your break even, where are you today? Are you above the line? Are you below the line? And what is your move? Do you need to increase marketing to drive up to this zone? Or are you already at max capacity and are you at that decision tree to either optimize or grow your team and expand? Hopefully this helped, and we'll see you next time here on Builder Funnel TV.